Our social movement is based on the International Institute of Human Trafficking, and it was prepared by Pender,
Desirae Webster,
Emonee Sanchez,
Kris Edwards,
and Michael Andersen.
Have you ever seen someone who is overly fearful, submissive, tense, or paranoid? They may defer to another person before giving information. They might even have physical injuries or brandings. These are all signs of human trafficking, and this is a serious issue that does not get the right recognition, resources, or help that it should, especially in our justice system. Now, human trafficking is the use of force, fraud, or coercion to obtain some type of labor or commercial sex act. It can happen to just about anyone, anywhere. Traffickers use violence, manipulation, or false promises of well-paying jobs, or even romantic relationships in order to lure their victims. There are 6 main types of human trafficking. The first one is forced labor, which is a form of modern-day slavery in which individuals perform labor services through the use of force, fraud, or coercion with little to no pay against their will. The second type is sex trafficking, which is the act or practice of illegally transporting people from one area to another for the purpose of sexual exploitation. Third, there is organ trafficking. This one is the trading of human organs, tissues, or other body products. Fourth, there is child soldiering. This is the unlawful recruitment or use of children for labor or sexual exploitation by armed forces, and many are abused. The fifth is child marriage. This is a marriage without consent of one or both people in said marriage. And lastly, there's debt bondage, which is the pledge of a person to provide services and means of repayment for debt in which the terms of repayment are not clearly stated and said person is under control of the other person. Overall, sex trafficking happens all around us, and many don't even realize it is happening.
So IHTI is a global student-led movement, and it aims to stop human trafficking. The movement has a plan, and in order so they are successful, they implement 4 different aspects to achieve their goal, starting with specialized units. So in order that the cases make it a fast track to the courts, they don't change the criminal justice system at all. What they do is they place these specialized units within it to enforce the anti-human trafficking laws. Secondly, there's the academy. Now, in order that the specialized units can be equipped, they are enrolled in the academy and have coursework which will help them gain trauma-informed interviewing techniques, identify different cases, and also learn new trial strategies. Next is the embedded experts, who are investigators and prosecutors with past human trafficking experience that are placed with the specialized units in office. And last is research and scholarship. To ensure that the specialized units have what they need, the Institute provides new optimal practices, legal research, and multidisciplinary scholarship to help make for better casework and also to help with future financial decisions. So all in all, this method is tried and true and is effective towards ending modern day slavery.
Hearing firsthand experiences is a powerful and important part of understanding the sex trafficking epidemic, and it will make your heart twist in new ways. Apathy is not an option. Victims of sex trafficking deserve our support and fight to put a stop to this industry. I'm going to talk about one of the many horrible stories from unisfusa.org. All names are pseudonyms. Mary, at only 17 years old, felt that she had no future in her home in Nigeria. She was introduced to a man named Ben who told her he could provide her with opportunities to work in restaurants in Europe, and in the meantime, he would pay for her expenses. When she went to this man's house, there were other children, boys and girls. She, as well as others, were sent to Libya. She was told she would be safe, and if she complied, she would get to go to Europe. Here, she was repeatedly raped and threatened when she tried to defend herself. For months, she was abused, drugged, and starved. She had to beg for food, and with no phone and no way to contact anyone, she was trapped. She was put on a boat, and on August 11, 2016, the boat was stopped by the Italian Coast Guard, and she was rescued. She was put in a safe house, but her struggles did not end there. People began to show up at her mother's house, handcuffing and threatening her for reimbursement for the money used to rescue her daughter. Still, 4 years later, Mary is waiting for her documentation so she can get an education and a job. In an interview with Sarah Ferguson, published January 3rd, 2020, Mary says, "I'm so very lonely. I just want to be happy. I just want to be free. I want it to be over, even for just one day." Even years later, with resources that many victims have no access to, Mary is still dealing with the effects of her trauma.
Human trafficking has been inaccurately identified as prostitution or domestic abuse. Law enforcement efforts are holding traffickers accountable for their crimes since the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, the TVPA, made human trafficking a federal crime. In 2020, prosecutors filed more sex trafficking cases in the past 2 decades since the inception of the TVPA. You might think something like this happens somewhere else, but Ventura County, our local law enforcement agencies, all have human trafficking task force units to fight against sex trafficking. They're dedicated to handling human sex trafficking when it comes about in their jurisdiction, said the lead investigator, Catherine Torres of the Ventura Police Department Human Trafficking Unit. The task force provides education to the communities that they serve and bring awareness on how to recognize the signs of human trafficking while being sensitive to the victim so not to inflict additional trauma. Last year, Thousand Oaks had the highest number of trafficking violations and arrests, according to the Ventura County Sheriff Interactive Dashboard of Statistics. These 25 cases and occurrences ranged from, but not limited to, solicitation of prostitution, engaging and agreeing to engage in prostitution of human trafficking with a victim under 18 years old. The youngest victim that is manipulated into the life is 12 years old, Torres said. More on a local and relatable level, Ventura is not immune to sex trafficking. Minors have been located in hotel rooms while being transferred from city to city to elude law enforcement. In 2012, the Ventura Police Department intervened and rescued a 17-year-old girl from a hotel room who was missing from Oakland, California, and had been trafficked from state to state since she was 14. In 2011, a 14-year-old girl who went missing from San Diego was also located in a hotel room in Ventura with her male purchaser. She had been trafficked through Santa Barbara and Ventura via online means. Locating new victims online is just another resource that traffickers use and is a large tactic to connect buyers for sex for sale. The COVID-19 pandemic increased the rate of contact through traffickers to exploit new victims because they had been able to gain access through social media. Not all victims are kidnapped or sold, however, but many are simply manipulated and being used as a commodity without realizing it until it's much too late. Human traffickers operate independently from large-scale trafficking rings and opt to instead exploit weak individuals for whom they have a personal connection with. On a more positive note, 2020 was a great year for convictions. It yielded the highest average of sentences passed down for human traffickers in their cases in the last 20 years. And on average, a jail sentence was 10 to 13 years in prison.
The media has covered some information about human trafficking. Yes, we do know about it, but what can we do to take action and put our part? We can start by encouraging local schools and organizations to bring awareness. There is a volunteer organization called UNICEF Unit, and it's supported by local teams across the country to take action and advocate every day to put children first. You can send a letter to an elected official to let them know that trafficking is an issue and matters to you. Also, you can donate to some anti-trafficking organizations, for example, AGAPE International Mission for rescuing, restoring, and integrating survivors of trafficking and preventing the cycle of exploitation.
Thank you for listening to our presentation, and we hope you will take the time to get involved.